It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Smooth and Savvy is joined by some of the hottest talent in the entertainment industry, from musicians to authors and all those in between. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Mr. Smooth and Savvy himself, Douglas Coleman.
Hello. Howdy, ho. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. You have to forgive my voice today. I'm suffering from a terrible head cold, so my voice might not sound quite as wonderful as it normally does. However, we must plow on through all the mucus and continue with the show. Today we have Skip Haynes on, who I'm very excited about. He's a singer, songwriter, musician, political activist, and all-around very busy and involved guy. We mentioned a song during the interview called Through the Eyes of Love, but we didn't play it during the interview, so I thought I would just play it now before the interview. It's a nice love ballad. The players are Walden Dean, which are Josh and Justin Walden, and the song was written by Dana Walden, Skip Haynes, and Vincent Jenna. So we're going to play the song, and then we'll have a few commercials, and then we will get right to the interview.
Through the eyes of love, I am watching over you from above. I am watching through the eyes of love. I'm your brother, I'm your son. I'm not here, but I'm not done. I'm a voice from far away with a message for you today. I can't see you. But
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on The Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Acclaimed author of Garden, Jane Yates brings you the first book in a new trilogy, Octopus Pirate, a story of a foundling who has unusual talents, such as the ability to communicate with octopuses. As a baby, he was washed up on an island off the Scottish mainland. An eccentric former nun who lives alone with cats brings him up. He joins a circus and narrowly escapes plots against him, flees to Cornwall, builds a replica pirate ship that's also an airship to travel back in time to fight real pirates. Get your copy today from Amazon, only 99 cents.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Go listen, download, and subscribe to The Douglas Coleman Show. It's available at the website douglascolemanmusic.com/DCS. Also on iTunes, Spreaker, and YouTube. The Douglas Coleman Show is an internationally syndicated talk and music show that features fascinating and sometimes famous guests from all aspects of the entertainment industry. The topics can range from light and fluffy to sober and serious. Our focus is on music artists, but we also feature producers, authors, directors, and even promoters. The Douglas Coleman Show. Sometimes chat, sometimes music, always entertaining. Again, it's available today at the website douglascolemanmusic.com/DCS. You can also connect with them on Facebook at Douglas Coleman Show 1, follow on Twitter at Douglas Coleman 3, and you can even find them on TuneIn Radio. Again, that's the Douglas Coleman Show at the website douglascolemanmusic.com/DCS, iTunes, Spreaker, YouTube, and more. Go listen, download, subscribe, and share with your social networks today.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps from the UK, record producer, engineer. You might have heard of me. I've worked with artists from Elton John to Led Zeppelin to Bad Company, Twisted Sister, Robbie Williams, Oasis, many great bands and artists in the past and the present and hopefully in the future. But you can work with me as well. You know, all you got to do is get in touch with me on eppsmusicproductions.com. That's EWPSproductionsmusic.com. And I can help you with your productions and with your recordings. A lot of people do home recordings now, which you can only take so far. Maybe they need a bit of professional help. So get in touch with me and we can sort it out. And thanks for Douglas Coleman for giving me this spot. Thanks a lot. Cheers, bye.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat. See? Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! Wrong hat.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Skip Haynes wrote the classic rock song Lakeshore Drive and was the lead vocalist for Aliota Haynes and Jeremiah, a popular Chicago-based band in the 1970s and 80s. He produced and wrote 5 albums and several singles with AHJ. He moved to Los Angeles in the early 80s and continued to write and produce music. He was also an assistant art director for the Grammys for 8 years. He then formed the Laurel Canyon Animal Company with his partner Dana Walden, formerly of the band Champagne and also a hit songwriter. Skip is also the co-founder of CLAW, Citizens for Los Angeles Wildlife, a nonprofit dedicated to saving and preserving wildlife and habitat in Los Angeles. Okay, please welcome my guest, Skip Haynes. Hi, Skip. How are you?
Fine, Douglas. How are you?
Oh, doing very well. A lot of stuff on your bio here, all kinds of interesting stuff. Before we get to your new single, however, I wanted to ask you kind of quickly about an old single, I guess you had a long time ago. Let me get the pronunciation. Make sure, is it Aliota or Aliota?
It's Aliota.
Aliota. Okay, so Aliota, Haynes, and Jeremiah. And you had a song called Lakeshore Drive. Now,
That's correct.
What year did that come out?
Came out in 1971.
Oh, 71. Okay, real early 70s. I did have to have a chuckle about the album cover when I saw that picture, because you guys are all three shirtless. You've got the huge mustaches and the feathered hair. And it took me back to high school, because I can remember that being very classic sort of 70s look.
Yes, we were classic 70s. Absolutely.
Did that song chart?
It charted Midwest, in the South a bit. And although right now I can't say movie, and it's up to being a huge new movie after all these years. It's really crazy, but it might be experiencing a comeback.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah, I've been actually dealing with it, and it actually has made the cut for the movie.
Super.
So
are you you're in the running with other songs, or is it a done deal?
No, it's whether or not the scene stays in the movie, and I was told that the scene's going to stay in, and it's gone through 2 benchmarks, and now they're even considering it for the trailers and advertising.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Which would be great.
Did you ever have any? I noticed that the song and the lyrics were kind of interesting, where you said, "I'm driving on LSD," which I know meant Lakeshore Drive. But did you ever have any fallout with that, like the Beatles did with Lucy in the Sky?
Well, we didn't have fallout, but it I didn't do acid. I wasn't big on psychedelics, because I like to know how long the trip's going to be and where I can get off. And but the song is actually a cruising song about drinking and getting high and going to clubs. And if you're not from Chicago, it would be too hard to describe the route. But basically, the whole premise was, in the 70s, it was like a really heavy thing to do. If you lived on Lakeshore Drive, when you sent your mail and so forth, you could say, "I lived at 1400 LSD." That's really kind of what was goofing on it. And when we were in the studio doing the song, the chorus goes, "Tripping on by on Lakeshore Drive, Friday night trouble bound." And that was repeated twice. And at that time, the 7 words were in. You had to be very careful of any drug references.
Oh, right.
You got pulled off the radio immediately. So when I was with Mitch Aliota, who sang harmonies with me, when we were in the studio singing it, I just looked at him and I said, "Mitch, what do you think? Should we just repeat the chorus twice, or on the second time go tripping on by on LSD, Friday night trouble bound?" And Mitchell was from, if you know Chicago, he's from Berwyn. And his reply was, "Hey, man, put the LSD in." And so I went, okay. And we did it, and it probably made the song, because there was just enough wiggle room, because it was Lakeshore Drive, that we didn't get thrown off the air. And the song kind of took off by itself. And we also found out there's 110 Lakeshore Drives in the United States. Okay. And they're all the same street.
It was just interesting, because I know a lot of, especially at that time, I can remember, well, like I said, the Beatles with Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and then BBC banned that. And then there was the other famous one was Jim Morrison on the Ed Sullivan Show, when they wanted him to change the words from "Baby Couldn't Get Much Higher."
Right.
Yeah, and then he refused to sing, or he sang the original words, and then Ed told him never to come back on the show again.
I know, but with a song like that, you have to do the original words.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't work otherwise. Believe me, I know. Lakeshore Drive, we re-recorded it several times, and we had a couple of other songs. We had a song called "Money Talks and Bullshit Walks." And we had to change it to "Bow Jive Walks," and it just destroyed the song.
Oh, Bow Jive. People would go, "What? What's that? What's Bow Jive?"
Yeah, exactly. So.
What do you think now? You guys you've been around in the music industry for a considerable number of years. What do you think of the current music industry scene?
Well, me, I think it's kind of like the project dictates itself. It happens as it happens. And of course, when the internet came in, that really changed the equation completely, because before that, the big aggregators, the record companies, they had the distribution, they had promotion, they had everything, and they really pushed records and broke records. When the internet came in, what happened is you literally had your store right next to your product. So people could buy instantly. And it, on one hand, it's called the long tail of the market. The long tail were all the independents and the people, the small labels and so forth. They have a bigger chance now because you can, record a song in your living room and sell it in your living room. And there's distribution, but now you have to work it yourself. So I don't think there's as many big superstars, but the money's spread out more and it gives you more opportunities. One thing I think all of this is pushing live music, because with sampling and video and everything else, nothing's live anymore. So the only thing you can have to be unique is a live performance. You have to be there or you can't experience it. So I think it tends to go more towards live performance, even on YouTube. Once it hits, it's still, people are going for that live performance. But I think it's still the same. You still have to promote it. You still have to create the content. You have to promote it. You have to support it. It's the same thing, just changing the technology is my opinion on that.
Well, one of my rants that I do on this show, because I'm an indie musician and I also support a lot of other indie musicians, one of my rants is that I always say that now music used to be an art form and now it's a computer science.
Mm. Well, to many, many degrees it is, but still, like one of the things we do, the record company that I own, I own a record company, and it's called the Laurel Canyon Animal Company, and it's in Laurel Canyon here in California. And one of the reason that company started, even though I do all my music under that label, was I was sitting with my partner, who was a guy named Dana Walden, who had a band called Champagne, and he's had some huge multinational hits. How About Us? I'm trying to remember the other one. And we were sitting at the country store here in Laurel Canyon, and this was in 1999. The music industry was tanking. The record stores were closing. The distributors were disappearing. So we were sitting talking about how do we do something musically that is different, that has a different aspect, that doesn't depend on the market that is rapidly vanishing. And we ended up doing, we're the only label in the world probably that does music exclusively about, for, and with animals. That's all we do. And we sometimes use psychics. We bring psychics in to act as translators for the animals, to involve them in the creative musical process. And then based on the animals' responses, we create music. We kind of use them as a directional muse. We have since expanded because we're content providers. So we deal with a specific market that, we're still making records. We do the same thing that the record industry does. But I think in this business climate for record industry, you really need a good story, because people try to promote, as your show. People need to promote their project. People need to know that it's out there. So we took that particular direction as a hobby when it started, but it's turned out to be an actual business that we've had since 1999. But, we look for different ways to attract attention for what we're doing, and different ways to do things. And, and I also personally believe that when you're doing music, you should do it with a social consciousness. That's how I have to hold them accountable. Because frankly, I wrote the album 3 years ago, and I never expected it to do anything, because it's a political album, and people, at least in the industry, are not interested in political albums. But I just did it because it was fun to do. And when you're a songwriter, if you have something to say, you write a song about it.
Right. Well, certainly in the 60s, many of the great songs were politically based.
Yes.
You know, Four Dead in Ohio and all kinds of the best ones from the late 60s. But you're right. It kind of got watered down and sort of generic through this.
It's corporate.
Yeah, it's corporate.
Corporate's a big problem.
Yeah.
In my view.
Let me go back to your Laurel Canyon Animal Company. I'm kind of curious about that because you said that you're making records with animals. Now, you know, the picture that comes into my mind is that you've got dogs barking on the record itself. But how do you actually go about doing that with animals?
I'll try to. It's a very long and different story. I'll just give you a run up as quickly as I can of our current project, which is going to be released in about 2 weeks. What we do, we wrote music for animal lovers. You know, we wrote an album called Catatonic for cat lovers. The first album we did was called Ugly Dogs Need More Love. It's for dog lovers. Then we thought it would be really fun to find a parrot with a snappy phrase, record the parrot, build a song around it, and register it with ASCAP as the first parrot ever registered as a composer and a performer, which we did. We found a parrot that had a phrase called "I'm a green chicken." And we wrote an album called "I'm a Green Chicken." You can see all these on our website, or you can listen to all of them on the website. And we actually, ASCAP, one of our publishing administrators is on the board of ASCAP. So the board actually considered this. And after they got done laughing, they said, no, we can't sign her. She doesn't have a social security number. So we couldn't sign the parrot, but it was done well. Then the next album we did with Coco, the gorilla who understands English and communicates through sign language. I don't know if you've ever heard of her.
It's been in a few movies, yeah?
Yeah, she's quite famous.
Yeah, I have heard.
We did an album called Fine Animal Gorilla, which was Coco's name for herself. She actually vetted the lyrics. She didn't like some of the lyrics. We had to change them because she does understand English perfectly. After we did that, we thought, wow, this is really cool. This is like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. We're communicating with other species using music and computers. And then we said, we have to find a Dr. Doolittle. We want to try to do this some more. So we found an animal psychic from Chicago, called her up and said, do you think you could act as a translator for us? We want to see if we can involve animals in the creative musical process. She went, sure, but I want to do dogs. We went, great. So basically, we sent her different kinds of music, and she did a lot of pro bono work in shelters. And she took this music to shelters and played it for the dogs and related to us what the dogs said. Based on the dogs' responses, we created an album called Songs to Make Dogs Happy. We had no idea what we're doing, just a couple of goofball musicians, you know, having fun. Well, apparently it really worked. This album really affects dogs, and it affects them for separation anxiety, and they're afraid of thunder, and vets started calling us, telling us that it was helping dogs in recovery and so forth. So that became kind of a process with us. So basically, when we're working with an animal, when we want to involve whatever the animal is, we try to find a psychic that fits the particular project. Then we have the psychic, quote, read the animal. And then we take whatever the psychic says the animal said and create songs based on it. So it's kind of a directional muse. We use the animals as muses. And then if we're doing video on it, we'll do a rough song based on what the animal said. We'll bring the animal into our studio, as goofy as this sounds. We'll bring the animal into our studio, play the song again for the animal, see if there's any comments. If they like it, they don't like it, whatever. If there's any adjustments to make, we make them, and then we put the product out. That's roughly how it works. The project we're working on now is called In the Service Of, and we're working with a war dog named Sirius, who did 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan, and his handler was killed when he was on patrol with this animal. The animal did another tour of duty, but had PTSD and was retired, and basically was taken in by the mother of the soldier who was killed in action.
Wow.
So when we started doing this, normally we had always used, we're not using female psychic on this particular project. We brought in someone who's a medium, who actually, this is new territory for us, who speaks to dead people. That's what he does. But he can also do animals. And we brought him in because normally he wanted to do this project. He said, because normally I'm talking to dead animals for live people. In this case, he's talking to the spirit of Sergeant Joshua Ashley, who was killed in action in 2012 through this dog. And so we've created a trilogy of songs, one song based on the direct read of the dog, and when we got the read from the psychic, it was very sad because the dog's really bummed out. Just still doesn't understand why Joshua's gone. It's a special needs dog now because when he was under the Army's care, he got a stress ball wedged between his teeth, and they don't know for how long. And when they took it out, his jaw's locked permanently. So the dog has 2 steel plates in his mouth to keep his mouth open. He can't chew. He has to have, a liquid diet. So now he's a special needs dog. Oh. And in this process, because we're dealing with a medium who talks to people who've passed over, now Sergeant Ashley has become involved in this project. So one of the songs is coming directly from the spirit of this soldier. One of the songs is coming directly from the dog. One of the things the dog said in the first read, as sad as the read was, first thing the dog said, it didn't like its name. It wanted to be called Duke. And this is something we've encountered many times. If animals don't like their names, they can become physically ill. So this kind of was a validation for the communicator because we've seen this many times before. So, and he also said dogs like happy. So we created a song called Just Call Me Duke. And it's about calling him Duke. Joshua's mother, Tammy, told me the story of Joshua and Sirius. So we wrote a song called Song of the War Dog, and it's a very heavy song. It's a war dog song, and it's about what the dog does, what happened that night, because apparently they were in Afghanistan. They were crossing a small river at night, and these dogs always go point. These dogs lead the way. They go in the tunnels. They do all these things, and Sirius had crossed this stream and had cleared it, but it was a very windy night, and they do this by smell. And I guess it was the Taliban had planted the pressure plate for the bomb, for the improvised explosive device, underwater. And the dog wasn't heavy enough to set off the trigger, but Joshua was. So he was killed when he was on patrol with Sirius. So, we had done these 2 songs, and so my partner Dana was in the studio, and when we did the reading where Tammy brought Sirius in to hear the songs and so forth, she brought her younger son Jordan in, who absolutely thought we were crazy. I was very surprised to see him because he thought what we were doing was, out of hand, out of control. But he showed up. And when Vincent Jenna, who's our communicator, started talking to him, Vincent just turned around and said, Joshua's in the room. And everybody kind of went, huh? And he told the younger son, Jordan, a few things that he went crazy. He said, yeah, there's no way that you could have known the things you said. So he became a believer. And when my partner was in the studio a day or 2 after the last reading, he was sitting in the same spot Jordan was sitting in. And he called me up and said, I'm telling you, Joshua's here, man. And he just told me what to write. I went, okay. And he wrote this incredibly beautiful song. I'm just stunned by this song. I can't wait till we put this out. It's called Through the Eyes of Love. And Joshua told his family that he was there and he was watching over them and not to worry. It was quite touching. So this project has become very, very interesting because what we also do, we use, many times we'll give up to 50% of our net profits to organizations associated with whichever animal we're working with. So now, because Tammy belongs to an organization called Gold Star Mothers, which are mothers who've had sons and daughters, etc., killed in action. Part of what we do is because what we do is so crazy it does pique people's interest, and we lead them to things that we feel they should know about or they should become involved in. And this is one of the best things we've ever done. So I'm quite excited about it. But basically, that's it. I didn't tell you about the pink dolphins in the Amazon, but we work with them too.
Well, this sounds like these albums, are they primarily made for the animals to listen to? Or
No. Two of them are. Two of them are made for dogs. Dogs are kind of our preference.
So like music therapy for dogs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like if you're doing country music, you have to orchestrate the music in a certain way to make it acceptable to a country audience.
Right.
If you're doing blues, there's certain formats of blues that's a blues, and if it varies too far from the format, you're going to lose your core blues audience. And each different genre, dictates a different kind of instrumentation or beats or tempo. Well, we just look at it like we try to put in things when we're dealing with music for dogs in particular that dogs are interested in. One of the things we learned is when we're doing songs to make dogs happy, when we were doing the percussion and the drum kits, we couldn't use a rim shot or a side stick on the drums because it reminded dogs from bad neighborhoods of gunshots and scared them. And until that came through the communicator, we went, I could have had a V8, but of course. But if you don't think about it or you don't know about it, it made sense. So we did it. And, we learned that dogs like up-tempo. And we actually did that research qualitatively and quantitatively. We did a lot of research on it. And apparently it worked, at least for dogs. We tried doing it for cats. Didn't work too much. The communicator's comment was, well, I got good news and bad news for you. The good news is cats like music better than dogs. The bad news is they don't like to talk about it. So we never, we never got a chance to actually do it with cats. And I think about the only thing left that we want to do after this war dog situation is our war dog project is we were thinking about doing a tri-species album between dolphins, primates, and humans, because dolphins and primates communicate through touchscreen and computer, so you could actually do this. But so that's our company kind of in a large nutshell.
Okay, I wanted to also ask you a little bit about, you worked at the Grammys as an art director for 8 years, an assistant art director. What exactly does the art director at the Grammys do? What was your function?
Well, the art director the design director for all that at the time was my girlfriend, Ricky Polis. She'd done it for 25 years. And primarily she would do the program book for the program, design it, put everything together, logos, banners, any collateral material. There's, because there's tons of things. Because the Grammys does a lot of shows during Grammy Week. They have their Music Cares Foundation, and they have the Grammy Foundation. They have Grammy in the schools. And she pretty much did most of everything for collateral material for them.
Okay, so it wasn't just the actual Grammy Awards show. It was
no, that's the award show. That doesn't have anything to do with the Grammys per se. The design of it. The only area that overlap was when she did logos, because once you do a logo, it gets used for everything, the show included.
Tell us a little bit about Claw. It's another project you're working on.
Oh, Claw was Citizens for Los Angeles Wildlife. I'm a very heavy wildlife advocate and advocate for saving habitat here. Los Angeles, everybody thinks of Los Angeles as Hollywood and Sunset Strip, but it's the only city in the world that has a mountain range running directly through the center of the city, the Santa Monica Mountains. Right, yeah. And that's where I live. I live on the side of a mountain. And if you go right over the hill, you can walk down to Sunset Strip. Where I live looks like Tuscany or Aspen. I work very hard I fight city government. Claw was basically up to advocate for animals. I now have another nonprofit that actually we're going up against city government. That's my other prime interest is politics. And I've been doing this for a long time. I just I was fighting development in my neighborhood because we have some of the most expensive land in the country that is now available because of technology. The mountainsides, the hillsides, you can build anywhere now, and we have all kinds of money coming in, and our city government is grossly ineffective in doing what they're supposed to do. I think it's a worldwide situation. Look at England leaving Brexit and the rise of Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. That's all people that are just totally pissed off and disaffected with getting jerked around by the government, to put it,
Oh, sure.
in street terms. And so I work very diligently to hold their feet to the fire, to actually get something done. It's very difficult to get government to move, but you can do it. Short of armed revolution.
Yeah, well, anybody who's stood in line at the Social Security office knows all about that.
But it's so much worse than people think. They have no idea. And unfortunately, the public at large ignorance in the process that moves things in government. And what I'm saying, I deal with Los Angeles city government, but it's exactly the same all the way up. And it was weird when I first started doing it. I remember walking into City Hall downtown in Los Angeles and going, what the hell am I doing here? About 3 months later, I went, why am I so comfortable here? Because we had to go down there a lot. And what I realized was politics is 100% performance art. It's rock and roll. That's all it is. And once you realize that, and once you realize the fact that the only people a politician is responsible to are the people in his district. That's it. No one else can touch him. And people have all these big movements and do all, you try to get a senator to change his outlook. You have to go to his district and convince the people in his district to put pressure on him. There's nothing like the threat of a recall to get a politician off his butt and starting to look at what he's supposed to be looking at, which is, he works for the people. It's a people's representative. He doesn't work for the developers. He doesn't work for the corporate guys that pay most of their ways. And once you do something that motivates his district, you will see a change instantly. They will flip just like that. And, the other thing you have to realize, I found that the politicians respond very quickly to a threat to their jobs.
Well,
they don't like their jobs threatened, and most of them do not like to be in the limelight. The organization I'm working for now, the Kirkwood Bowl Foundation, I'm the spotlight director. If anybody saw the movie Spotlight, I'm sure they did. It won an Oscar. That's exactly the same thing that is happening with Los Angeles city government. And our organization, not being as well funded as Spotlight from the Boston Globe, we're doing the same thing. So I'm very, very politically active because stopping development saves animal habitat. That's my reason. And the other reason is, frankly, it just pisses me off when they could be doing the right thing and not affecting anything they're doing, yet they don't. That really makes me angry. And it makes me angry that they don't obey their own rules and mandates. So I'm on the street trying to change something, I'm looking at the micro aspect of it, going in for small things. But if you change a small thing, it changes lots of things. So I'm very politically active, and I'm very into animals, and I put music to everything.
Well, that's a great segue into Hold Them Accountable, which is the name of your album. And the single we've got is called Everyone Wants a Piece of the Pie. You've got a quote on here, something about President Obama. Tell us a little bit about what the inspiration for this song was.
As far as I remember, at one point in his campaign, he was talking about everybody should have a piece of the pie. And it really struck me because I'm a firm believer everybody should be paid for what they do. Mm-hmm. Everybody should receive compensation for the time and effort they put in. And this song I don't do, you write songs?
Yes.
Are you a songwriter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what your process is. My process is usually one line. Somebody will say something.
That's the
I'll
same.
Yeah. It's like, that's it.
Yeah.
And then you have to fill in the song.
Right.
Okay. So he said that, and it just comes out. I just started reading it. And I was thinking of, everybody that does the work. I equate everything to rock and roll. people never pay attention to the roadies. Roadies are the guys that make you happen. Without roadies, you don't exist as an act, unless you're a single and a harmonica player.
Yeah. True enough.
So this came from that whole aspect. And basically, I'm a Democrat I hate to even use those terms, but I'm from Chicago and I was a Democrat. I lean towards that. And, the Democrats, there was a saying in Chicago, when the Democrats are in, there's money on the street. And that was always, and I was a street guy, so that always appealed to me. So this whole song was just, about, it really angers me when big corporations and banks, they get a pass, and they shouldn't. They're thieves, and they break laws, and they should be held accountable to it. So that started the whole process. And this song was just a song that came up very quickly, and it talks about the fat cats, and it talks about, and all my songs, probably in every one of the songs on this album, there's a line that says, "We're coming after you." I really believe that governments need to be afraid of the people, to respect the people, so they do what they're mandated to do. Otherwise, they'll just walk all over us. So I think it's a people's responsibility to let their elected officials and whoever know they're very dissatisfied and they're going to do something about it. So that's kind of what the song's about. And when I started writing it, I thought this would be a nice little reggae tune. And my partner that I do music with a lot is Swiss. He's from Switzerland. And I started playing, and he can really yodel. So this song is yodeling reggae. It seemed to work at the time. And but mostly I would want people to listen to the lyrics.
Well, let's have a listen to it. I'm going to play it right now. This is "Everyone Wants a Piece of the Pie" by Skip Haynes.
Everybody wants a piece of the pie. Everybody wants a treat. Everybody wants a piece of the pie. Everybody wants to eat. Everybody wants a piece of the pie. Everybody wants to dance. Everybody wants a piece of the pie. Everybody wants a chance. Everybody wants a chance. 'Cause we're all here in the kitchen, and we're working side by side. We do all the baking, so we should all share the pie. Oh, everybody wants a piece of the pie. Everybody wants a treat. Everybody wants a piece of the pie. Everybody wants to eat. The fat cats, they got too much pie, yet the crumbs never hit the floor. They got more pie than they can eat, yet they still want to eat some more. Pie is supposed to trickle down, but I guess that isn't true. No one sent pie to my house. How about you? Oh, everybody wants a piece of the pie. Everybody wants a treat. Everybody wants a piece of the pie. Everybody wants to eat. There's only one thing I have to say, something tried and true. You'd better not steal my pie if you know what's good for you. The pie belongs to everyone, not to just a few. So if you try to steal the pie, we're coming after you. Yes, we're coming after you. 'Cause we're all here in the kitchen, and we're working side by side. We do all the baking, so we should all share the pie. Oh, everybody wants a piece of the pie. Everybody needs a treat. Everybody needs a piece of the pie. Everybody needs to eat. Oh, yeah. Everybody needs to eat. Everybody needs to eat.
Yeah, that is absolutely unique. I don't think I've ever heard a yodeling reggae song before.
Me either. And I have two new ones I just did. I'll send them to you. One's called Donald Trump's Hands because his hands make me nuts.
What he does with his hands?
Yeah, he looks like a Balinese dancer. It's so effeminate and weird and, and obnoxious and just, so I wrote a song about that. And I have another one coming out called Trickle Down Clowns because trickle down
economics.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, like that works. It's like capitalism's all about everything for me and nothing for you. And people should realize that up front. And if you're lucky, you get someone that includes other people. So trickle down doesn't work. Rich people normally, not all of them, they don't get off their money. If in fact they get more because people try to do things to get their money. So they're given free things and so forth. Trickle down, I do not believe works. So, it's just another thing to write a song about.
I just wanted to get back to one thing you said regarding this song. And then, unfortunately, our time is running out very quickly. But you had mentioned about when you were telling about the sort of the concept of the song, that everybody should get paid for their efforts. And I absolutely agree with you on that. I want to turn this into back to music a bit because you're a musician. I always have this rant on my show when I have other artists on, music artists, that climate has changed radically because of the technology. And what pisses me off is that music has become very disposable. I mean, you have been around to know that when you would go into a studio and do a performance-based song, that it would take hours and hours in the studio to get it right. You would do the thing as a whole take, the whole song, and then you'd have to be mixing and you'd have to be mastering. And, maybe you did some overdubs or whatever, but it took a long time to put the thing together. Precisely. And a lot of work. So here's what's happened. So now you've got people who can slap a song together on a computer in 10 minutes using nothing more than samples and MIDI sounds and, fake drums and everything else. And then they go out onto something like Spotify and they get a penny. All right. Now the song that took 10 minutes to write on a MacBook is getting the same shelf level as the song that somebody went into a studio and took 3 weeks to do.
It's true.
And that pisses me off because there isn't the measure of effort and the measure of work that went into as far as the music industry is concerned, the two songs are exactly at the same spot and they're worth the same thing.
Technically they are. But what bothers me, I'll kind of build on a little bit on what you're saying. What also bothers me is when people take samples, at some point that sample was what you are describing, and they're taking, so if you take 10 samples to take you 10 minutes to put them together, there's probably hundreds of hours for the original music that sample came from that were put in. And what they're doing is they're stealing other people's product. They're stealing other people's thoughts. Not that it's not valid. Whatever gets the song done is valid, whether you like it or not. But I think, the other thing is you used to have to go and play live.
Right.
And now, you can sit in your room and people put out YouTube stuff and so forth, and probably at least being very conservative, 75% of the people that do that, there's an aspect of being a songwriter and then there's an aspect of being an entertainer. And if you have to entertain people if you're live, and the only way you learn how to do that is bomb a lot. You have to do a lot of performing, find out what not to do. And I think that's what's kind of lacking now.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think as a result of streaming and, I was really proud of Taylor Swift for pulling her songs off of Spotify.
Yes.
I thought that was a very good thing she did.
And they don't pay people enough.
Well, I'm on there.
They make, no.
You know, just to give you an example, one of my songs got 700 streams, okay? And that was $7. Now, if that had been 700 CDs sold at $10 a piece, that would have been $7,000.
That's right.
There's a big difference. It's very frustrating when, you know, you write a song and you put it all together and you do it the old-fashioned way, sitting at a piano with a pen and a paper, you know, and you put all of that work in so you can have the penny. You know, it just, I don't know. It just pisses me off.
They should be paying more because, you know, look at the Grammys. The only reason the Grammys or BMI or the American Country Music Awards or any of them exist is because there's guys sitting in rooms somewhere writing songs. Everything is generated off the content, and the content providers get the least. That's because you have corporate bean counters running the business, and I absolutely despise them, you know, but they're a necessary part, which force people over into independent recording. You know, that's one of the things doing it. And yeah, I mean, I want to get paid more. I mean, I know how much money they charge for advertising, you know, and then I look at how much money they're paying the artist that is bringing that advertising in. You know, it's like drug dealers. A lot of drug dealers think they're great salesmen. They're not. The drugs are selling it. Well, it's the same thing with music. You know, the music is selling it, not the organizations who are taking all the money, the middlemen that take the money. And I don't really know what you could do about that. Taylor Swift was great, but, you know, bottom line, that's where it goes back to live performance with me. The only thing you can't replicate is a live performance.
Right.
Period.
Well, and that's really where she's made most of her money anyways, is through her concerts and tours. You know, because,
and so, you know, that's what it's back. So it's, you know, if you want to see something real, if you want to see something, you know, unique, because each live performance is unique. Even if you're doing the same songs over and over and over. It's one thing doing a song for the girls of Radcliffe, and it's another thing doing that same song for, like, the Elks Club. It's a different song, believe me.
Right. Well, it's true. And I mean, most artists that I've talked to who are, you know, full-time working musicians, that's the two things. You don't make any money selling records anymore because people don't buy music. So you either have to tour and make money from your concerts. And oddly enough, they sell a lot of CDs at the venues because when people are there, they pick it up as a souvenir. So then the whole T-shirt market and everything has happened along with that, which is fine. But, you know, I hate to think of musicians when they tally their profits at the end of the year and they say, well, I sold 500 CDs, but I sold 10,000 T-shirts. You know, it kind of deflates the artist's contribution as far as a creative. You know, now they've become in the rag trade.
Well, they have to. That's the function of the internet.
Yeah.
Because the record companies used to do that. And now it's incumbent on the artist. And that's a whole nother thing you have to learn. That's a whole nother genre to learn. And, but it's incumbent on the artist now. If you don't do it, or you don't learn how to work social media, or you don't learn how to book, or you don't learn how to do all those things, you have to do it yourself. And the ones that do learn it are very successful. And, you know, the ones that don't, at least they have a shot now. Before you didn't have a shot at all.
Well, it is a double-edged sword. I mean, there is the opportunity for people to do everything from their home studio. Which wasn't possible, you know, in the 70s and 80s. Well, Skip, we are totally out of time at this point. I kind of went on the tangent, but I'm glad we did because it's one of my favorite rants.
Yeah, so like, you know, it's like I was supposed to really stay on bullet points and selling music, and it's just like, it's kind of that's the trouble with like Skyping like this or not being in the studio. You know, it's like, we're having a conversation. Sometimes it tends to expand. But you can fix it in the mix, right?
Well, you can, but I usually leave it. I hate to delete good content.
Oh, yeah.
And sort of the premise of my show is like that. It's just, let's see where we go for the hour.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I don't script anything, and I don't want this to be like a 60 Minutes interview.
Yeah.
I want it to sound
Great.
like two guys sitting in a room, having a beer, having a conversation. Right. That's really what it's about.
Well, that's pretty much what it was, I think.
Oh, yeah. Great. So the album is called Hold Them Accountable, and the single is called Everyone Wants a Piece of the Pie by Skip Haynes. I'm assuming it's available on all the outlets we just talked about, iTunes.
Yeah, it is.
And
and if they want to go to the website is called WeNeedToHoldThemAccountable.com.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It was great talking to you.
Thanks, Douglas. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my special guest, Skip Haynes. This is Douglas Coleman saying goodbye.
It's a